We are pleased and honored to have with us today Dr. Robert Wiggins. Dr. Wiggins is a talented pediatric ophthalmologist working in North Carolina, US. He specializes in comprehensive ophthalmology, pediatric ophthalmology, and neuro-ophthalmology, and serves as a physician administrator of the Asheville Eye Associates in North Carolina. Following his fellowship training in pediatric ophthalmology and then neuro-ophthalmology, Dr. Wiggins served for 1 year as clinical assistant professor of pediatric ophthalmology at King Khalid Eye Specialist Hospital in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. This was in 1990. Since 1991, has practiced at Asheville Eye Associates. He currently serves on the board of trustees of the American Academy of Ophthalmology as president-elect. He also serves the board of Ophthalmic Mutual Insurance Company. He also served as president of the American Association for Pediatric Ophthalmology and Strabismus. Dr. Wiggins is a recognized authority in children's eye disorders and neurological diseases of the visual system. He has been named among the best doctors in America by Best Doctors Company since 2011, a recognition received by only 5% of doctors in America. Dr. Wiggins and his wife have 3 children. He has lived in Asheville since 1991. Without more to say, I'm hoping that you enjoy this virtual seminar. Please, Dr. Wiggins, welcome back to KKESH.
I'm delighted to speak with you today on a variety of topics in pediatric ophthalmology and strabismus. I had the opportunity to work at King Khalid Eye Specialist Hospital for 1 year between January 15th, 1990 and January 15th, 1991 in the Department of Pediatric Ophthalmology and Strabismus. Although that was over 30 years ago, I remember the year as I was beginning my career very clearly and have cherished those memories ever since. Encountered many wonderful people during that year and truly enjoyed the challenges and range of pathology in the clinic and operating room, and the opportunity to explore a new culture. Before we get started in the presentations, I thought I'd share a few memories of what life was like at KKESH from my perspective over 30 years ago, not too many years after the hospital was opened. I was encouraged to spend a year in Saudi Arabia at KKESH by my fellowship director, Dr. Gunther von Norden, who at the time had written one of the major textbooks of strabismus. He spent time at the eye hospital in Jeddah each year, and several of his fellows had been to KKESH previously. I followed my pediatric fellowship with a neuro-ophthalmology fellowship, and then began my year's contract, which began January 15th of 1990, and which would end 1 year later. My wife, who was a nurse, and I would marry just the month before we began our work in Saudi Arabia. There are no words to describe how beautiful this hospital is, even though I'd seen it in pictures before. This is an article that was authored by Drs. Tabara and Blody and published in the Archives of Ophthalmology just a few years before I began work at KKESH. At the time, it had 263 beds with all surgeries performed on an inpatient basis and was staffed by 30 ophthalmologists, 6 fellows, and 32 residents. The national strategy for workforce development involved recruitment from outside the kingdom until Saudi citizens were trained to fill those positions. At the time this article was published, of eye specialists providing care in hospitals, only 6% were Saudi citizens, with non-Saudi ophthalmologists coming primarily from India or Pakistan, followed by other Middle Eastern countries, followed by those from Western countries. Of course, one of the highlights of my year at KKESH was the opportunity to take care of patients with a wide range of ocular disease, including this child with retinoblastoma. In addition to genetic diseases, including many of the autosomal recessive conditions present in the kingdom, such as this individual with Bardet-Biedl syndrome, I had the opportunity to work with Dr. Richard Lewis, an ocular geneticist from Houston, Texas, on identifying families with autosomal recessive eye diseases. And of course, a wide variety of anterior segment diseases such as congenital cataracts and glaucoma, in addition to the large population of individuals with strabismus. It was as gratifying in my early career to help improve the lives of our pediatric patients as it is now. Here's Dr. Habash, one of the surgeons there at the time, with a heavy patient and her mother on the pediatric floor after surgery. And here we are in the pediatric clinic with some of the staff. Dr. Sempf and Engel were other pediatric ophthalmologists from the United States working there at the time. Sally Baumgartner, the orthoptist seated to the left of me, who worked at KKESH for about 10 years, came to work with me in the United States about 25 years ago and continues to do so on a part-time basis. Here we are on the pediatric inpatient floor. That's me at the far right if you don't recognize me from today's video 30 years later. And here I am with the interpreters in the clinic. They were invaluable and a fun group to work with. The picture on the left is a group photo that still hangs in my office and has been right behind my desk for the past 30 years. Note in the photo on the right, there is someone in the second row in the center who was in training at the time and still works at the hospital. I have very fond memories of these two gentlemen, both of whom were in training and with whom I worked during my year here. They were superstars then, and I'm delighted to see both are still providing and leading eye care at KKESH. Both seem to be aging well. We enjoyed the unique activities within the kingdom during our stay here. Above is my wife, who I mentioned worked as a nurse at the hospital. We enjoyed a trip to Abha and returned home with some of the hand-woven baskets they are known for. There is nothing like living in another country that makes you step out of your comfort zone. It makes you feel more connected to others around the world and gives you a global perspective. I think there would be less misunderstanding among people of different nations if more of us had this opportunity. Living in Saudi Arabia for a year helped show me what an amazing world we live in and the amazing people that inhabit it. Scuba diving in the Red Sea was also a highlight of our time there. I highly encourage you to try it if you haven't before. The water is so clear and the fish among the reef were so colorful and beautiful. It was like exploring another planet. This is a view of downtown Riyadh circa 1990. I'm not sure I could find my way around based on a picture of downtown Riyadh I saw online recently. These were my two landmarks when driving about downtown, two of the tallest structures. If I got lost and could find one of these, I could get reoriented. Now I see the downtown is dominated by large skyscrapers. Here I am exploring the ruins of Diriyah. And I never tired of visiting the beautiful desert. And the desert that was so vast. That's me walking among the dunes. Trips to neighboring countries were easy and phenomenal, places I likely would never have visited otherwise. The presentation wouldn't be complete without mentioning that the last few months of my time here were dominated by news of the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait on August 2nd, 1990. As you might imagine, our families were very worried, but we decided to stay and complete our year-long contract. The UN deadline for Hussein to leave Kuwait was January 15th, 1991, the last day of our contract. We left for the airport for a flight which was supposed to leave the afternoon of January 15th, and after waiting in a line that was probably at least 100 yards out of the front door of the airport to get to the ticket counter, we finally left in the early morning of January 16th, about 12 hours delayed. It was very chaotic at the airport as many were leaving the country in anticipation of war with Iraq, a day I'll never forget. The war did start about 24 hours after our departure, and it is my understanding that they closed the airport to civilian traffic that same day. I look forward to catching up on what has happened over the last 30 years. Following our 6 presentations, The first is a popular one I've given at joint meetings of the American Society for Pediatric Ophthalmology and Strabismus in India and Australia. It's always nice to review the basics and the literature support for what we do. The next involves what I've learned over the past 13 years by serving on the board of the Ophthalmic Mutual Insurance Company, the largest malpractice insurer of ophthalmologists in the United States. We can all learn something about the quality of care we provide by reviewing claims data in our field. The third lecture involves the evaluation and management of thyroid eye disease, with an emphasis on strabismus management and experience with the newest pharmaceutical to treat this condition, teprotumumab. The fourth lecture will include a range of case studies in pediatric ophthalmology and strabismus. The fifth gives you a framework for thinking about waste in healthcare and a presentation on lean management and improving efficiency. I've had the privilege of serving as my practice's physician administrator over more than 20 years and as president of the American Association for Pediatric Ophthalmology and Strabismus, and I'll be president of the American Academy of Ophthalmology next year. I'll share what I've learned about leadership over my career. I look forward to seeing everyone later today.